Okay, good afternoon. So I'll be talking about a very interesting thing, which is a ketogenic diet. I hope you all know what is ketogenic diet. Ketogenic diet is a diet which creates effect which is almost uh, that of a fasting. So I was studying fasting and I came across few very interesting phenomena and the words which we all know, but probably I for the first time came to know the meaning of these words. One is vrat and the other is upvasa. So vrat is a vow that you take and then you stick to the task. As far as if vow is regarding meal, it is maximum of one meal per 24 hours, or it may be without meal, without water, which we call as nirjala vrat. And there can be vows regarding many other things like a moon vrat, where those who take a vow, they won't talk for that specific period of time. And what is upvasa means near to the God. It is a state where one feels that he is close to the God. And in such a situation, usually people will take very light food and food will be without any meat, roots and oil. So there's been a debate whether one should be fasting or one should not fast. So the benefits of fasting is like it provides rest to the digestive machinery. It removes toxins, improves health. It helps in weight loss. It improves focus and it improves spiritual well-being. However, there are views which are against fasting, as people say that fasting is like starvation and it makes a person prone for vitamin and mineral deficiencies. But fasting is inherent in old cultures from a very, very long time. Like Plato, for the first time, said, I fast for greater physical and mental efficiency. Hippocrates, who is considered father of modern medicine, he said that the natural healing force within each one of us is the greatest force in getting well. To eat when you are sick is to feed your own sickness. Ancient Egyptians used to fast for 30 days per year. Native Americans, they also used to feed only when they had an urge. They also used to fast as a prayer for success in upcoming wars. All major religions has a tradition of fasting to cleanse body and to control temptations for spiritual upliftment. However, there are houses and corporate food chains who actually demonize fasting, and there are many of them. So it was in 1911 for the first time Gulepa actually had a modern publication regarding the effects of fasting. They treated 21 patients with intermittent fasting as treatment strategy for epilepsy. However, there are not many people who fasted responded. Only 2 actually responded to fasting, but 15 patients could not continue fasting. So, however, it was the first evidence that fasting has some role in the treatment of diseases. For the first time, after this first study of Gulepa, there are many more studies which came into the literature from 1921 to 28, where people treated their patients with seizures with intermittent fasting, and they had variable results, but most of their patients actually had more than 50% of people who responded to fasting. So there is a relationship of fasting with acidosis and dietary fat. It was Lennox and Cobb in 1922 reported a select group of 5 patients who actually underwent fasting for 2 weeks period. He himself was a control, and they did various blood and urine tests while the people were fasting, and they showed that there was increase in serum uric acid and acidosis while the people were fasting. And if the fast was broken with carbohydrates, then the urine excretion of acidosis was increased. But if it was fasted, it was broken by fat, the fasting actually continued, and the urine excretion of the acids was not there. There are various other biochemical effects of fasting which are also seen. With the increase in duration of starvation, there is increase in the blood ketones. There is increase in plasma glucagon. There is reduction in plasma insulin level. Plasma free fatty acids increases. Liver glycogen reduces and blood glucose also comes down. So after taking this cue from fasting, it was Dr. Wilder at Mayo Clinic proposed that the effect of fasting can be produced without fasting, but by introducing this diet, which is now called the ketogenic diet. He proposed that the benefits of fasting could be obtained if ketonemia was produced by other means. The ketone bodies are formed from fat and protein whenever a disproportion exists between the amount of fatty acid and the amount of sugar actually burning in the tissues. In any case, as long been known, it is possible to provoke ketogenesis by feeding diets which are rich in fat and low in carbohydrate. So it is the quote of Dr. Wilder who proposed for the first time that ketogenic diet can be used to create the effects of fasting. So if you see the genesis of various anti-epileptic drugs, the first drug which came into the picture was bromides in the year 1860. And the second one was phenobarbital. And thereafter, a large number of drugs came into the picture in a very small period of time. But ketogenic diet came into vogue much before even the introduction of phenytoin. And at the time when ketogenic diet was tried, only two drugs were available, and these were bromide and phenobarbital. So what is actually ketogenic diet? Diets rich in fats are ketogenic diets. Depending upon the ratio and type of fats to combine protein and carbohydrates, ketogenic diets can be divided into 4 types. These are classical ketogenic diet, medium chain triglyceride ketogenic diets, modified Atkins diet, and low glycemic index treatment diets. So I'll just very briefly present what these diets are. So the classic ketogenic diet is a ratio of fats to proteins plus carbohydrate, and the ratio may vary from 1:1 to 4:1. Whereas in MCT ketogenic diet, low glycemic index diet, and modified Atkins diet, the ratio is not maintained. For LGIT and MAD, 1:1 is the maximum ratio that is usually which is administered. There is a limited carbohydrate allowance, and the allowance varies from diet to diet. For example, in classic diet, the allowance of carbohydrates ranges from 4 grams to 60 grams. In MCT diet, for every 1000 kilocalorie diet, 48 grams of carbohydrate is allowed. For LGIT, 40 to 60 grams, and for MAD, 20 to 30 grams. The calories are controlled in all the diets. Fluid restriction is not there. And we expect high ketones in classic ketogenic diet, whereas because the carbohydrate allowance is there in other diets, so ketones may not be there in very high amount in urine in other diets. The advantages of classic ketogenic diet is that there is a fixed combination, and one don't have to think much about the proportions, because proportions are already fixed. So there is less of a record keeping. Whereas in MCT diet, it provides more of protein, and that is true also for LGIT and MAT. So when we give more of a protein, then you are able to bring variety into the diet, and the acceptability of the diet also improves. The disadvantage of classic ketogenic diet is it's not palatable, and the child or the patient has to eat everything on the plate. The proteins are limited, so the diet actually is not palatable. So many people don't stick to the ketogenic diet. The disadvantage of MCT, LGIT, and MAD diets are that we have to keep a very good record keeping, because you have to keep the record of the carbohydrate protein part which one has to take. And for low glycemic index diet, one has to know the carbohydrates of low glycemic index. So what are the precautions one should take before we prescribe a ketogenic diet? So the diet should be given under medical supervision. Classic ketogenic diet and MCT diet should be started in hospital only. Many people now start classic diet in 1:1 ratio in the OPD basis also. We also start in OPDs in children where we don't we don't require a rapid response, where we are able to titrate the diet gradually over a period of time on the OPD basis. The vitamins and minerals needs to be supplemented. Anthropometric measurements, blood sugar, urine, and blood ketones, lipids, etc. have to be measured prior to starting ketogenic diet. One has to see for renal stones, and one also has to do the screening test like calcium creatinine ratio, etc., to see for renal stones, because these diets actually propensate the development of renal stones in children. And after starting diet, side effects of ketogenic diet should be carefully monitored. So these are the blood and urine investigations one should do. Screening, these are screening lab work before starting ketogenic diet. In blood, we get acyl carnitine, lactate, fasting lipid profile. In urine, we see organic acids, calcium creatinine ratio, urine analysis. And after we start the ketogenic diet, we do all these tests every 3 months for blood and urine. And annually, we do echocardiogram. So there are many side effects of ketogenic diet also. Acute side effects are the nausea and vomiting. It can produce hypoglycemia. And because of excessive ketosis, it can also produce lethargy. The chronic side effects are GI side effects like constipation, weight loss, minerals and vitamin deficiencies, especially selenium, vitamin D, and calcium deficiencies. And it can also produce the chronic pancreatitis. It can produce renal stones, so one has to monitor by ultrasound and by urinary calcium creatinine ratio. Then prolonged QT interval and cardiomyopathy is also a late complication of ketogenic diet. Because of deficiencies, it can produce short stature and osteopenia. And so one has to regularly monitor for all these things. So how do we start ketogenic diet? First is the pre-diet counseling, where we explain the diet. We share the recipe list with the parents. We tell them how the keto diastics have to be used, how to monitor blood sugar. We take the baseline measurements and we do the lab tests. Even the toothpaste has to be non-sugar containing. Then we require a very fast response, especially for ketogenic diet. When we have to start it by 4:1 ratio, we generally bring a rapid response by doing fasting. So what we do is we admit the child, we do fasting. Once the ketones are there, then we institute the diet. It produces early ketosis by the diet. Otherwise, we can start in the OPD basis by 1:1 ratio and gradually titrate up the diet. Then we start the diet and we make sure that all the syrups are converted into tablet forms because they are sugar containing, and we avoid all kind of sugars. The diets are usually divided such that the child does not feel hungry at any point of time. And then we follow up the patient by seizure count. We monitor the behavior. We monitor anthropometric and lab measurements, as I have already detailed. So what should be the duration of ketogenic diet? Actually, it varies. Generally, we give it for 2 to 3 months if the child tolerates the diet. In some of the epilepsy syndromes where the diet is effective, we can extend the duration to several months and up to several of years. Maximum published duration of ketogenic diet is 12 years. We have given for many years in some of our patients. For long term, the classic ketogenic diet may be gradually changed into modified Atkins diet to improve its palatability and acceptance. And if we require to stop it, we generally admit the patient and then we stop abruptly. Otherwise, it can be gradually weaned. So there are a lot of evidence in epilepsy. These are all childhood epilepsy syndromes. They happens to be the drug refractory syndromes. And most of these children, the drug refractory children, the ketogenic diet is effective. We consider any drug or diet effective if it produces less than 50% of the seizure count. So it is same for drugs. It is same for the diet. And in these children, it is remarkable because most of the children are taking 4, 5, or 6 anti-epileptics. And they are still having a lot of seizures per day. But as soon as we start diet, there is a marked reduction in the seizure count. The only issue with classic ketogenic diet that usually produces the best response as far as our experience is concerned is the palatability of the diet. So there are certain contraindications, like if the child has defects in the fat pathway, like pyruvate carboxylase deficiency, primary carnitine deficiency, defects in fatty acid oxidation, and porphyria, then we cannot start ketogenic diet in these children. The presence of renal stones and hyperlipidemia are relative contraindications. So what is actually the mechanism of action of ketogenic diet, especially in epilepsy, we don't know. That is why there are a large number of mechanisms proposed. We feel that ketone somehow stabilizes the neuronal membrane, and therefore it reduces the seizures count in most of the children. But there are other mechanisms also, like increase in mitochondrial functions, antioxidative mechanisms, anti-inflammatory actions. And the polyunsaturated fatty acids regulate neuronal excitability, alters neurometabolites, and produces positive energy balance, increase in ATPs. So I'd like you to see this video of this gentleman who is 103 years old. He's a renowned yoga teacher.
उनकी इस यात्रा में कई ऐसे लोग जुड़े जिनकी वजह से उन्हें देश विदेश जाने का मौका मिला। आज कोई ऐसा देश नहीं है जहां रमोला जी के व्यक्तित्व से कोई परिचित ना हो।
भोजन सुधार करता हूँ हमेशा। जब भी मुझे अपनी जिंदगी मैंने कभी दवाई नहीं खाई, ना एलोपैथी होम्योपैथी लोअर कोर्ट है, आयुर्वेद यूनानी हाई कोर्ट है, नेचर सुप्रीम कोर्ट है, और ध्यान और प्राणायाम राष्ट्रपति पावर है। मैं इसी पे ज़्यादा ध्यान देता हूँ।
आज जिस तरह की जिंदगी रमोला जी की है, उसे देखकर कोई अंदाजा भी नहीं लगा सकता कि इसी शख्स को दुनिया भर में इतनी इज्जत मिली, योग सिखाया, नाम कमाया।
एक 103 साल में मैं जवान हूँ और मैं कभी थकता नहीं हूँ, कभी मुझे सांस नहीं उखड़ती, कभी कोई बीमारी होती ना, कभी मैं दवाई लेता हूँ। और जब भी बीमार होने का होता है तो 2-2 महीने का उपवास कर लेता हूँ मैं, पानी पर, तो नई जिंदगी शुरू हो जाती है मेरी।
So this was the last few words which I wanted to share with you of this gentleman. I'm aware of many people who do the same thing. Like whenever they fall sick, they go into the stage of fasting, and what they say is that it produces remarkable effects. They produce rapid recovery. While the modern medicine says that one should not be dehydrated at the time of illnesses, but the old yogis have different cultures in India, and they do exactly the opposite, and they claim to produce the similar benefits. I'm not sure of fasting, but ketogenic diet has remarkable benefits as far as epilepsy is concerned. But there are many other disorders where the ketogenic diet is proposed to be very effective. Super effective status epilepticus, where we have already published some work where we treated our patients who were not responsive to any anti-epileptic drugs, non-epileptic drugs like steroids, IVIGs, and not even to the anesthetic agents, but they responded to ketogenic diet. Then the role has also been defined in autism, headache, Alzheimer's disease, and head trauma. So to summarize, fasting is known for years to exert several health benefits, and same benefits have been there by ketogenic diet. Ketogenic diet is of several types depending upon the ratio of fat to carbohydrate and proteins. It should be used under medical care, and the spectrum of beneficial effects of ketogenic diet are gradually increasing. Thank you.